Hello, it's the 3rd of March 2020 from the Noble Queendom of Onestia, previously called the Noble Queendom of Acnipolitania, not to confuse with any enemy organizations or projects which took the name and turned it into brothels. This is the virginal queendom, called queendom due to the feminine, the female nature, which has nothing to do with whatsoever sex considerations. I was born a woman and I do not accept any manipulations of the natural. My name is Agnieszka Justitia, the first of Onestia, and I'm the queen. I'm the founder. For some time I was not able to record anything, but today I have found a new option. So here I am with my pictures from 2015, if I recall correctly. I cannot take pictures either. I can, well, perhaps I can, but I cannot upload them in my laptop. So I'm using the ones I took in the past. And I would like to say a few words on the new Romanticism, especially that I found myself in the environment of the people following or working on Romanticism. Perhaps not found myself personally in the environment, but there are the profiles in the internet, and I thought that once I started talking about this new Romanticism, I should say what I am really talking about. So perhaps we could start with my view of Romanticism, because new Romanticism implies both a relation to Romanticism and a departure from it. And I listed 6 points. So the first one is spirit. The second one, individuality. The third one, freedom. The fourth one, nature and the supernatural. The fifth one, morality. And the sixth one, the patriotic and the cosmopolitan. So these are our orientation. Let's start with the spirit. I believe this is the key idea or presence or ontology for Romanticism, actually. I don't know what you were taught at school, and I'm not sure if I was taught at school about this particular perception of the development of literature, but I attended some private tuition, and there it was, and it seems pretty convincing, namely the cosine way, in which we go from period to period, and there's the spiritual on the rise and then the spiritual on the fall. So from the perspective of Poland, there are spiritual epochs. The spirit on the rise in the Middle Ages, then there is a Renaissance, then the spirit on the rise in Baroque, and then Enlightenment, and then the spirit of the rise in Romanticism. And that is the main point I'm making. Some time ago, I read an essay by Julius Kleiner on Romanticism, which I recommend wholeheartedly. But I'm not going to relate to it in detail or directly, for the reason of me not being really in command of all my knowledge of Romanticism. All sorts of things have been done to my brain functioning and the memory easily accessible is one of the problems. But apart from what I have already done, there's a lot to do, obviously. So let me just mention that Julius Kleiner emphasizes the introduction of three souls in the Romantic period, in the period of Romanticism. The soul of the nation or the people, I'm not sure which he would choose. For example, in Poland, that would imply that in Poland we have a different soul than they have in England. The introduction, or we are a different soul actually, that's another philosophical question. Then the modern soul, which is different from the ancient one, and it comes to life in the Romantic period. And then the soul of the nature, the soul of nature. 2. Individuality. It is quite important because from my general observation, there are some mass movements which try to reach for Romanticism only to pervert it, I guess, or to kill the spirit. So it needs to be emphasized that individuality is the key idea and way of life in the Romantic period. And there's the role of the poet, obviously. The poet, the visionary. With the visionary, we have the intuition. And also we need to ask ourselves about the definition of the intuition, obviously, because the intuition, as it functions in psychology, I believe, and perhaps in the discourse nowadays, is that intuition boils down to the previous knowledge, to the knowledge that we actually have but are not aware of. There's another possibility. Of course, in that first category, we would also have possible knowledge of previous lifetimes. This is also the previous knowledge. Whichever option one takes, this has to do with something we actually know but are not aware of knowing it. So we say, wow, this is the intuition. But then we can also think of God's presence. And I believe that that kind of intuition is the romantic one. Freedom. And with freedom comes independence. So here we have personal freedom, social freedom, national freedom, religious freedom, scientific freedom, and artistic freedom. And it is quite important to know what we are talking about and where we started, because I can see it nowadays. People are trying to go into this argument who the real romantic is, what were they like? And so they say, oh no, you with your concepts of virginity are certainly not in the romantic spirit. And these are promiscuous people, and this is sex with, oh, today I have listened to a lecture, not to lecture, to conversation. Um, um, the professor from Oxford mentioned the Byron's life. So you know the three in bed. And I want to argument that this is a misconception. So this is like you have some ideal and you take an individual realization of that idea or dream. For the dream, for the idea, for the stuff, while this is the sequence, a step in the sequence. So the personal freedom comes first, and it depends what you make out of it. It depends on your individuality. In social terms, we have the problem of functioning in a society. So it has to do with the question of equality. And that actually takes major elaboration, which I'm not going to attempt right now. I hope nothing bad will happen if I do not pick up the phone. So I believe we need to go back in time again and see how the human rights started. And they started from the natural rights. And we need to take into account the situation at the time. So who was the tyranny then? And it may turn out that the tyranny then could be a tyranny nowadays, but is not in power. Why we have new tyrannies? So the romantic of today would fight against different tyrannies, but would certainly fight against all tyranny. The national freedom. It has to do with all those fights for independence. And then religious. So, you know, we were not talking about system actually. System is a modern world. A modern world probably too, but a modern world. You know, you have this order and the official church and the faith. And this is slightly different from atheism because it's still the period of the spirit. And actually Kleiner makes a point of religious rebirth. So some misconceptions here too. Scientific freedom. Well, we have Mary Shelley and Mr. Frankenstein. Obviously, there was the presence of the dream of going beyond our limits, and ages have passed and we need to pick it up again in our times and see what we might have been missing at the time. And the artistic freedom which has to do with form. I won't go into more detail here because I'm running out of time. So then we have morality. It is very important to emphasize that morality was actually very important in the Romantic period. And first, Shelley, in his preface to the Revolt of Islam, which I have not read yet, I mean the Revolt of Islam, he points out to the experiment on the public mind and to the French Revolution, to how atrocious it was, and to the failure actually. So the moral point, behind those revolutions, there are moral points, and this is not. These are not degenerate people. Some degenerate people nowadays try to own the Romanticism, which was not degenerate. Of course, they had some problems with drugs, etc., but they had high ideals, and these were moral ideals too. And then the patriotic and the cosmopolitan, and the historic comes with it. And so there's a different thinking, and I was actually in that way of thinking for a long time. So I did not see the juxtaposition between the patriotic and the cosmopolitan. So you fight for your own country, for the freedom, and at the same time you are the citizen of the world. No contradiction. Well, it has become a contradiction. Obviously, the patriotic nowadays is connected with the historic, with the tradition, and the cosmopolitan seems to be a departure from the tradition, from the historic, from the individuality, and the loss of the nation's soul. So now, New Romanticism, what would be the points? Well, first let us look at the situation, the spiritual and the suppression. So, the new philosophy, there's the mind and the body. Then two, the individual and the suppression, types and the danger of communism. And in communism, we have the party. 3. Freedom redefined, real freedom under suppression. So the question of chastity. And we also have the mainstream thinking and the outsider. So what is the mainstream thinking now? And who is the outsider? And then there's the question of monarchy, the inequality. Well, also, when you look closely, the poet did not feel himself actually equal with the rest of them, did he? The poet, the philosopher, the artist. And then, because there's the rise of the village boy, for example, and you can see it in the language. So what actually happens is it is the poet reaching for the language of the village boy. The village boy will not reach for the poet's language, and it's obvious. So we cannot talk about any equality. However, we do have the village boy saying, no, we are 7, as I heard in some other publication. And it's very good that I did. So we have freedom redefined nowadays, real freedom under suppression. And you have a sense of danger to national existence, to religious existence, even the existence as a species. And we have social rearrangements, masses plus DNA. 4. Nature polluted, modified, a threat of modernity. If you think of the Polish United Party, of weapons, it was a certain culture. And I made this claim during my entrance exam for the English philology. and the professors did not like it so much, but they claimed that they had a literature of their own. And if you think of it in broader terms, you have the culture of the concrete, the grey, and that was not very attractive. But then if you think of modernity and the architecture, isn't it the modern concrete in relation to nature, to the natural? 5. Morality suppressed. While we used to have war crimes, we do not care about them too much. We do not care about using torture too much anymore, actually. But we have a new phenomenon. We have peace crimes. Mind you, we are not at war right now. None of the countries has declared a war. And then 6. National identity in danger. Basically, the point I am making is that when we talk about Romanticism and the idea of Romanticism today, or my idea of New Romanticism, we need to depart from those platitudes and look into the real spirit of the Romantic. Because I do not think I would cherish Byron for his promiscuity. Those are mine. But the ones that might are today's celebrities. And if you think of it, where would that position those great spirits and minds? And I believe that the new philosophy I want to create will depart from that. So first we need to really understand what were the Romantics about. And to wind up, if you read Cross at Midnight carefully, which I did, you may think of the silence in which you can actually hear the frost. And that was to be the beautiful ending of that recording. Sadly, my voice does not really record as I would like it to record. There are problems with the voice really because there has been so many manipulations of it. I'm not sure if anyone remembers my voice any longer. I missed one point when I was talking about Romanticism, the elaboration on that question of nature and the supernatural, and this is quite vital. So what we have here is the landscape, the people, and the language. What is important is that the nature, or the natural and the supernatural. What is the nature? The nature is the natural and the supernatural coexisting, and the supernatural presences are actually real. We have spontaneous expression of feeling, natural or supernatural. Here we have, for instance, premonitions of immortality, and thought, reflections. So this point, spontaneity, comes together with the overall life of the natural.